In developing the predation metaphor, I have so far compared human society to a wild ecosystem. However, once humans had left hunting and gathering behind, they no longer inhabited an entirely wild ecosystem. Increasingly, they were domesticating plants and animals and altering landscapes to support domesticated species. This behavior may have shed some light on the evolution of relations between humans, who were, in effect, also domesticating, quote unquote, themselves in one another. Like that term, that idea of domesticating people, I think is really quite powerful. Wikipedia defines domestication as a, quote, sustained multi-generational relationship in which one group of organisms assumes a significant degree of influence over the reproduction and care of another group to secure a more predictable supply of resources from that second group. Domesticated non-human species can be said to have benefited from the relationship. By giving up freedom, they gained protection, a stable source of food, and the opportunity to spread their population through a wider geographic range. As Michael Pollan discusses in his popular book, The Botany of Desire, A Plant's Eye View of the World. As we'll see, the same benefits accrued to humans themselves as they became more domesticated, quote unquote. Several authors seem independently to have come upon an insight that's key to our present discussion: the human domestication of prey animals. Effectively, a predator organized system for the management of prey may have served as a template that could be transferred to intra-human relations. Humans domesticating an animal species must have had to organize their own thinking and behavior in order to tame, feed, and selectively breed their animal captives. Once we domesticated prey animals, did we replicate that thinking and those behaviors within human society? This is very interesting. Domestication began before or concurrent with the development of stratification and complexity, not after it, though the process has continued to the present. Thus, it is extremely unlikely that human slavery served as a model or inspiration for animal domestication. However, the reverse is entirely possible. A test of this hypothesis might be to examine parts of the world that didn't have cattle, pigs, and horses and inquire if slavery still occurred in those places. However, candidate areas are problematic. Hunter-gatherer societies, for example, Aboriginal Australians, typically had no domesticated animals other than the dog, and no slavery or other systems of intra-societal exploitation. However, inter-societal raids were frequent, and captives were sometimes taken. In the case of pre-Columbian America, domesticated animals consisted primarily of dogs and turkeys in North America, and guinea pigs, llamas, and alpacas in South America. Slavery was institutionalized among at least some indigenous peoples of the Americas. Many groups enslaved war captives who were used for small-scale labor. Some captives were ritually sacrificed in ceremonies that sometimes involve ritual torture and cannibalism. Many groups permitted captives to gradually become integrated into the tribe. Slaves were not bought and sold, but could be traded or exchanged with other tribes. The hypothesis appears difficult to test in this way, but indirect evidence supports it. Echoing the earlier work of ecologist Paul Shepard, anthropologist Tim Ingold at the University of Aberdeen in Scotland, in his book The Perception of the Environment, argues that foraging peoples regarded animals as their equals, while pastoralists tended to treat their domesticated animals as property to be mastered and controlled. Archaeologist Guillermo Alguez at the University of California in San Diego finds that the first city-states in Mesopotamia were built on the principle of transferring methods of control from animals to fellow humans. Scribes employed the same categories to describe captives and temple workers as they used to count state-owned cattle, which were among the first forms of property and money. Hunter-gatherers were typically difficult to domesticate, often preferring death to slavery, as Stanley Diamond and others have discussed. At the other end of the spectrum are modern citizens exposed in childhood to universal compulsory education. You should read my man John Taylor Gatto. We'll break that down thoroughly. So at the other end of the spectrum are modern citizens exposed in childhood to universal compulsory education, which, with its bells, routines, inculcation of behavioral norms, segregation of children by age, and ranking by achievement, results in adults prepared for life in an orderly, stratified, scheduled, and routinized society. And what's funny is he actually hyperlinks to Gatto's book, The Underground History of American Schooling, which is a monster of a book, or The Underground History of American Education. Predation could be said to foster its own psychology. Predators, non-human and human, do not appear to view their prey with much compassion. Predation is a game to be played and enjoyed. If orcas and cougars could speak, they might echo the typical words of the professional bill collector. It's nothing personal, it's just business. The psychology of domestication follows suit. Sheep, cattle, pigs, and poultry are often regarded simply as commodities, rather than as conscious beings with intention, imagination, and feeling. For a family living on a farm, daily proximity with livestock entails getting to know individual animals, a few of which may earn sympathy and respect, especially from children. Many keepers of livestock generally care for their animals, treating them when they are sick and making sure that when the animals are finally killed for food, the killing occurs with minimal pain and suffering. But when any animal comes to be seen as food, empathy is often attenuated, as it is in many slaughterhouses and fishing trawlers. Evidently, domestication wasn't always motivated by the desire for food. Some domesticates became workers. For example, horses, oxen, mules, or pets. The latter provided affection, companionship, amusement, and beauty. In class-based societies, rulers similarly exploit worker humans and develop close relationships with, and this is, when I read this, because I've been thinking about this so much as of late. So let me start again. In class-based societies, rulers similarly exploit worker humans and develop close relationships with quote-unquote pet artists, musicians, and other creative people, as well as concubines and sex slaves, who likewise supply companionship, beauty, and amusement. Today, many people lavish extraordinary care on their pets, as ancient Egyptians did with their cats, while society heaps attention and riches on elite musicians, actors, artists, athletes, models, and authors. The fact that the pet analogy has been poking me in the head for a long time, and the fact that he pointed this out, there's so much that he mentioned in this that has been turning over in my mind. So reading this is actually a real pleasure. Are human predator-prey relationships, quote unquote, as essential to complex human society as animal predator-prey relationships are to healthy ecosystems? Political idealists have replied with a resounding no, though the evidence is somewhat debatable. Cooperative complex institutions such as cooperative businesses are numerous and successful. Further, some industrial societies feature much lower levels of wealth inequality than do others. Clearly, humans are able to limit predation in favor of cooperation, and a diverse cottage industry of scholars working in fields such as anti-racism, cooperative economics, and nonviolent communication has grown up to help this transformation occur. This is a point to which we will return toward the end of the essay. Nonetheless, in the world currently, inequality and predation, quote unquote, remain facts of life, and the consequences are clear not just for humans, but the entire biosphere, as we are about to see. Let's turn our attention next to the environmental stage on which the drama of domestication and predation now plays.